Picture this. You're sitting at brunch with your girls and somebody brings up investing. Maybe it's your friend who just started putting money in her 401k, or your cousin who won't stop talking about index funds. And you smile, nod along, and say something like, "Yeah, I'm definitely going to start investing soon. I just want to learn more about it first." Everybody nods back because it sounds so responsible, so mature, so financially savvy, except here's what nobody at that table is going to tell you. That sentence you just said, that perfectly reasonable sounding excuse, might be the most expensive thing you've ever uttered. I'm talking tens of thousands of dollars, potentially hundreds of thousands, all evaporating into thin air while you're sitting there waiting to feel ready, waiting to know enough, waiting for some magical moment of financial enlightenment that, let me tell you something, is never coming. My name is Felicia, and I spent way too many years telling myself the exact same lie before I finally understood what it was really costing me. If you've ever found yourself saying, "I'll invest when I know more," or "I just need to understand it better first," or "I'm not ready yet," I need you to stay with me. Because today we're going to expose this trap for exactly what it is, a psychological con job that's keeping smart, capable women broke while they wait for a sense of certainty that the financial industry has designed them never to feel. Here's where I need to get a little uncomfortable with you for a second, because what I'm about to say might sting. That waiting to learn more isn't protecting you. It's protecting your fear. And I get it. I really do. When you don't come from money, when nobody in your family talked about investing, when the financial industry has spent decades making you feel like you don't belong in those conversations, of course you feel like you need more information first. Of course you want to be prepared. Of course you don't want to make a mistake with money you work so hard to earn. But here's the trap embedded in that thinking. The financial industry has made investing seem so complicated, so risky, so full of jargon and hidden dangers that perfectly intelligent women convince themselves they need a finance degree before they can put their first $100 into an index fund. And while you're sitting there trying to learn everything, your money is doing absolutely nothing except losing value to inflation every single year. According to research from Fidelity's 2024 Women in Investing study, women cite lack of knowledge as one of their top barriers to investing. And yet the same research shows that when women do invest, they actually outperform men by an average of 40 basis points annually. Let me translate that for you. Women are better investors than men, but we don't invest because we think we don't know enough. Meanwhile, men with half our research skills and twice our overconfidence are out there making money while we're reading another beginner's guide to the stock market. The knowledge gap isn't real. The confidence gap is what's killing us. Let me break down what this waiting actually costs you, because I need you to feel this math in your bones. Say you're 30 years old and you've been telling yourself you'll start investing once you know more. You've been saying this for 5 years already. You have $300 a month that could go into investments, but instead it's sitting in a savings account earning maybe 0.5% interest while inflation runs at 3 to 4%. You're literally getting poorer every month while feeling responsible for being cautious. Now let's say your friend, the one who didn't wait, started investing that same $300 monthly 5 years ago in a simple total stock market index fund averaging 7% returns. She now has roughly $21,000. You have maybe $18,500 in your savings account, which has lost purchasing power every single year. But here's where it gets really painful. That 5-year head start isn't just worth the $2,500 difference today. It's worth the compound growth on that difference for the rest of your life. By the time you're both 65, that 5-year delay will have cost you approximately $78,000. Almost $80,000 gone because you needed to feel ready first. Now multiply that by all the women who've been sold this lie. According to a 2023 FINRA Foundation study, women are significantly less likely than men to have taxable investment accounts beyond retirement plans. We're not talking about women who can't afford to invest. We're talking about women with the money who aren't investing it because they've been convinced they need more expertise first. The collective wealth gap this creates is staggering. And it's not an accident. The financial industry benefits from your confusion. When you don't feel confident enough to invest on your own, you might pay someone to do it for you. Someone who charges 1% of your assets annually to put your money in the same index funds you could have bought yourself for a fraction of the cost. Or you might keep your money in bank products that benefit the bank more than they benefit you. Your uncertainty is their profit margin. But let me tell you what really made me angry when I figured this out. The information you think you need to start investing, it's not actually that complicated. The basics of investing that would serve 90% of people for their entire lives can be explained in about 20 minutes. Seriously. Invest regularly in low-cost index funds. Don't try to time the market. Don't panic when prices drop, and let compound interest do its work over decades. That's it. That's the secret that the entire financial industry has been obscuring with jargon and complexity. Warren Buffett, one of the richest investors in history, has said repeatedly that most people should just buy a low-cost S&P 500 index fund and leave it alone. He's not saying that because he thinks you're too dumb to do anything else. He's saying it because the research consistently shows that trying to be clever with your investments usually makes things worse. According to SPIVA research from S&P Global, over a 15-year period, more than 90% of actively managed large-cap funds underperform the S&P 500 index. The professionals who get paid millions of dollars to pick stocks can't beat the simple strategy of just buying everything in the index. So why are you waiting until you feel smart enough to do something the experts can't even do well? Here's where the psychology gets really interesting, and this is the part that most financial education completely ignores. The feeling that you need to know more before you start isn't actually about knowledge at all. It's about anxiety. And anxiety doesn't go away when you gather more information. Often it gets worse. Every article you read introduces new terms you don't understand, new risks you hadn't considered, new experts with conflicting opinions. The more you research, the more complicated everything seems, and the more convinced you become that you're not ready yet. This is a psychological trap called analysis paralysis, and the financial industry has perfected it as a business model. They keep feeding you complexity so you never feel ready to act on your own. A study published in the Journal of Consumer Psychology found that information overload can actually decrease decision quality and increase avoidance behavior. In plain English, too much research makes you worse at deciding and more likely to do nothing at all. So all that studying you're doing isn't making you a better investor. It's making you a better procrastinator. Let me tell you what finally broke me out of this trap, because I lived in it for years. I was the woman reading every personal finance book, listening to every podcast, following every financial influencer. I could explain the difference between a Roth and traditional IRA, talk about expense ratios, debate active versus passive investing. I knew so much about money, and I had almost none of it actually invested. What changed wasn't gaining more knowledge. It was recognizing that the knowledge I needed to start, I already had. The rest was just anxiety dressed up as due diligence. I opened a brokerage account, set up an automatic monthly transfer into a total stock market index fund, and watched my hands shake while I did it. That was 5 years ago. My portfolio has grown by over 60% since then. Not because I'm a genius, because I finally stopped waiting to feel ready. Now here's where I have to address something that specifically affects women, and especially Black women. The feeling that you need to know more before you can participate in wealth-building spaces isn't coming from nowhere. It's coming from a lifetime of being talked over, talked down to, and excluded from financial conversations. According to research from the National Endowment for Financial Education, women report lower financial confidence than men, even when they have the same level of financial literacy. We've been conditioned to doubt ourselves in spaces where men are assumed to belong. When you walk into a financial advisor's office and they start explaining things in that condescending tone, like you couldn't possibly understand, of course you internalize the message that you need to learn more. When family members question your financial decisions in ways they'd never question a man's, of course you feel like you need more credentials before your choices are valid. This isn't paranoia. It's pattern recognition from years of experience. But here's what I need you to understand. Their condescension isn't evidence that you're not ready. It's evidence that they're underestimating you. And waiting until they approve of your knowledge level means waiting forever, because some people will never see a woman, especially a Black woman, as financially competent, no matter how much she knows. Let me talk about what happens when you actually start investing instead of just preparing to invest. First, the learning accelerates. Nothing teaches you about the market like having actual money in it. When you see your portfolio drop 10%, you learn something about your risk tolerance that no book could teach you. When you watch compound interest work in real time, adding money to your account that you didn't deposit, the concept stops being abstract and becomes visceral. When you have to decide whether to increase your contributions or take advantage of a market dip, you're learning through action, which research shows is far more effective than passive studying. A meta-analysis published in the journal Psychological Bulletin found that learning by doing produces stronger, more lasting knowledge acquisition than learning by reading alone. Your delay isn't just costing you money. It's costing you the education that only comes from participation. Second, starting small changes your identity. When you make your first investment, even if it's $50, you become an investor. That identity shift matters more than you might realize. Research on identity-based habits from Stanford psychologist B.J. Fogg shows that when we see ourselves as a certain type of person, we naturally adopt behaviors consistent with that identity. Once you're someone who invests, you start making other decisions that investors make. You pay more attention to your spending because you want more money to invest. You start thinking longer term because you're building something. You feel more confident asking questions about financial products because you're not an outsider anymore, you're a participant. The transformation in your financial behavior that you've been waiting for until you know enough actually happens because you started, not before. Third, and this is something nobody talks about, starting releases the mental energy you've been spending on the decision itself. The constant background calculation of should I start, am I ready, what if I mess up, takes up cognitive resources that could be going toward actually building wealth. Once you've made the decision and taken action, your brain can move on. According to research from the University of Minnesota, unfinished decisions create a cognitive burden that persists until the decision is made. Every day you spend undecided is a day of carrying unnecessary mental weight. Starting isn't just financially smart. It's a form of self-care. But here's where the math gets really serious, and I need you to understand why this particular trap is so devastating for women specifically. Women live longer than men. According to CDC data, the average American woman can expect to live about 5 years longer than the average American man. That's 5 extra years of retirement that you need to fund. And here's the kicker. Women's longer lifespans come with higher healthcare costs, especially later in life when long-term care becomes a real possibility. Genworth's 2023 Cost of Care survey found that the median annual cost of a private room in a nursing home is now over $108,000, who disproportionately ends up in long-term care facilities. Women. Who's paying for it? Women. So while you're waiting to feel ready to invest, time is working against you twice, once through the lost compound growth, and again through the longer retirement you need to fund with that smaller nest egg. Let me paint this picture for you because I need it to feel real. 2 women start their careers at 25, making the same salary. One invests $300 monthly, starting immediately in a low-cost index fund. She's nervous, doesn't feel like she knows enough, but does it anyway. The other waits until she feels ready, which happens at 35 after a decade of reading and researching. They both invest until 65. The one who started at 25 has approximately $670,000. The one who waited has approximately $326,000. That 10-year delay cost her $344,000. Now factor in that women's retirement costs are typically higher than men's. The woman who waited isn't just starting behind, she's starting behind in a race she needs to win by more. The math isn't neutral. It punishes delay more harshly the longer you need your money to last. Now let me address the argument that holds so many women back. What if I invest wrong and lose money? Here's the thing about that fear. You're already losing money. Inflation is eating your savings every single year. According to Bureau of Labor Statistics data from 2020 to 2023 alone, cumulative inflation was over 17%. That means $100 in your savings account in 2020 now buys you less than $83 worth of stuff. You didn't invest and you still lost money. The choice isn't between losing money and not losing money. It's between the guaranteed slow loss of inflation and the potential growth of investing with its short-term volatility. Historical data from NYU's Stern School of Business shows that the S&P 500 has produced positive returns in roughly 73% of all rolling 5-year periods since 1926. For 20-year periods, that number jumps to 100%. There has never been a 20-year period in modern market history where a diversified stock investment lost money. Ever. The risk you're protecting yourself from by waiting barely exists over long time horizons. The risk you're creating by waiting is very real. There's another version of this trap that shows up specifically in our community, and I need to call it out because I see it all the time. It's the idea that you need to get your financial house completely in order before you can start investing. You tell yourself you'll invest once your credit card is paid off, or once your emergency fund is fully funded, or once your student loans are gone, or once you get that raise. Always another milestone that needs to be hit before you earn the right to build wealth. And yes, debt payoff and emergency funds matter. I'm not dismissing that. But here's what nobody tells you. The waiting doesn't end. There's always another financial emergency, another unexpected expense, another reason why now isn't the right time. If you wait until everything is perfect before you start investing, you'll wait your entire life. The data backs this up. According to a Federal Reserve study on household finances, the average American household carries some form of debt their entire working life. If investing has to wait until you're debt-free, you might never invest at all. The smarter approach is what financial planners call parallel progress. You don't have to perfect one area of your finances before starting another. You can make progress on multiple fronts simultaneously, even if that progress is smaller in each area. Contributing $50 a month to investments while also paying down debt might not feel as satisfying as focusing all your energy on one goal, but that $50 starts compounding immediately. And over a 30-year career, that early start matters far more than the slightly faster debt payoff you'd get by waiting. The mathematical reality is that a dollar invested at 25 is worth far more than a dollar invested at 35, which is worth far more than a dollar invested at 45. Every year you delay to perfect something else is a year of compound growth you're losing permanently. But here's what I really want you to understand about the knowing enough trap. It's not just about numbers. It's about who gets to build wealth in this country and who gets told to wait their turn. For generations, women have been systematically excluded from financial decision-making. We were denied credit cards in our own names until the 1970s. We still earn 84 cents on the dollar compared to men. And for Black women, it's 69 cents. The wealth gap between men and women, between white families and Black families, wasn't created by accident. It was created by policies and practices that kept certain people from building assets while others had every advantage. And now, when we finally have access to the same investment accounts, the same index funds, the same compound interest that built generational wealth for others, we're told we need to wait until we know more. That narrative serves the status quo. It doesn't serve you. Let me address one more thing that keeps women stuck in this waiting pattern, and it's something we don't talk about enough. It's the fear of being seen as irresponsible with money if something goes wrong. When a man makes a risky investment and loses money, people say he took a shot. When a woman makes the same investment and loses money, people question her judgment, her intelligence, her competence. We're held to a different standard, and we know it. So we overcompensate by being overly cautious, by researching excessively, by waiting until we're absolutely certain. This is how systemic sexism gets internalized and shows up in our financial behavior. We're not being paranoid. We're responding rationally to a world that judges us more harshly. But here's the thing. The cautious approach they've conditioned us toward is actually riskier for our long-term financial security than the confident approach we're trying to protect ourselves from. I'm not saying you should invest blindly without any understanding. But the baseline understanding you need, truly need, is this. Invest in a diversified, low-cost index fund. Do it regularly regardless of what the market is doing. Don't touch it for decades. That's it. Everything else is optimization, not necessity. And optimization can happen while you're invested, while your money is actually working for you instead of sitting in an account losing value. You don't need to understand options trading, cryptocurrency, or technical analysis. You don't need to predict which companies will succeed. You don't need to know what the Fed is going to do with interest rates. You need to buy the whole market, hold it forever, and let time do the heavy lifting. This isn't complicated. They've made it seem complicated because your confusion benefits them. Here's something I've noticed in my own journey and in talking to hundreds of women about money. The women who actually build wealth aren't the ones who know the most. They're the ones who started earliest and stayed consistent. I know women with finance degrees who have less invested than women who barely finished high school but started putting money away in their 20s. Knowledge without action is just trivia. Action without complete knowledge still builds wealth. The compound interest doesn't care how many books you've read. It only cares how long your money has been in the market. And let me address the family pressure angle because I know so many of us deal with this. When you're the one in your family who's making money, there's often an expectation that you'll take care of everyone else before you take care of yourself. The aunties need help with bills. Your cousin needs a loan for their car. Your parents didn't have retirement savings and they're starting to need support. And you feel guilty even thinking about putting money into investments when people you love have immediate needs. I understand that pressure intimately, but here's what I need you to hear. Taking care of your family long-term means building wealth that can actually sustain that care. Draining your checking account to put out everyone's financial fires while never building assets of your own is a losing strategy. You're not helping your family if you end up broke at 65 because you never invested. The best thing you can do for the people you love is build a financial foundation strong enough to support them and yourself. That means investing even when it feels selfish. It's not selfish. It's strategic. It's how you break the cycle instead of perpetuating it. There's one more piece of this that I need you to hear, and it might be the most important thing I say in this entire video. The perfect time to start investing doesn't exist. It never has. It never will. There will always be a reason to wait. The market might crash. The economy might be uncertain. Your personal finances might be messy. You might not feel ready. All of those things will be true at some point, probably many points, throughout your investing life. And none of them are reasons not to start. The women who build wealth aren't the ones who wait for the perfect moment. They're the ones who start anyway and stay invested through all the imperfect moments. Time in the market beats timing the market. That's not just a catchy phrase. It's decades of financial research condensed into one sentence. Starting now with whatever you have is mathematically superior to waiting for the perfect moment with the perfect amount of knowledge. So here's what I want you to do today. Not after you read one more book. Not after you listen to 10 more podcast episodes. Not after you feel ready, because ready is a feeling that's been weaponized against you. Open a brokerage account, Vanguard, Fidelity, Schwab, any of the major ones with low fees. Set up an automatic monthly transfer of whatever you can afford. $50 is enough to start. Put it in a total stock market index fund, and then let it sit there and grow while you live your life. The learning you think you need to do first will happen naturally as you watch your money actually do something. The confidence you're waiting for won't come from more research. It will come from watching yourself become an investor through action. I wasted years waiting to know enough. Years of compound growth I'll never get back. Years of believing that my uncertainty was wisdom when it was actually fear wearing a sensible disguise. I don't want that for you. The gap between what women earn and what women own isn't going to close while we're sitting on the sidelines studying. It's going to close when we start participating in the same wealth-building systems that have compounded advantages for others for generations. You don't need anyone's permission to build wealth. You don't need to pass a test to open an investment account. You don't need to feel ready. You just need to start. Because every day you spend waiting to know more is a day your future self will wish she had back. The trap only works if you stay in it. So get out today, right now. Your money has been patient long enough. It's time to put it to work.